Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We are delighted to have Professor Marco Leonardi come today to talk to us about Italy's economic policy after COVID. And it's great that we can say after COVID, the challenges and opportunities of the recovery plan. Professor Leonardi is head of development head of the Department of Economic Planning at the Office of the Prime Minister, Mario Draghi. Previously, he was advisor to the Treasury Minister, Roberto Gualtieri, and former economic advisor to Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni. Professor Leonardi is a full professor of economics at the University of Milano, and he received his PhD in economics from the London School of Economics. He has been a visiting scholar at a number of very prestigious universities, including MIT and Stanford, as well as another university that I won't mention because it's a big competitor of ours. So, any event, his research interests are in labor economics with particular reference to wage inequality and earnings mobility. So, welcome, Professor Leonardi, and if you could talk for maybe half hour, then we can open up for questions.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here for the first time in Johns Hopkins. Today, I talk about the Resilience and Recovery Plan, the Italian Resilience and Recovery Plan, and I prepared a few slides to give you an overall presentation of what we are doing, what we have done recently, and what we are doing for the next 6 months. As you probably know already, the Next Generation EU is a plan that involves many European countries, including Italy. Closer. Including Italy. Italy actually is the biggest recipient of the recovery plan. The recovery plan has 3 dimensions: the digital and innovation dimension, the ecological transition dimension, the social inclusion dimension. Different countries have a different mix of the 3 dimensions. I guess, for example, Germany, Netherlands have a much larger share of their plans in ecological transition. We have, relative to other countries, a larger share of social inclusion, for example, to give you an idea of how the plans are different across countries. And Italy has decided on its own to give itself 3 cross-cutting priorities: gender equality, the youth, the protection and empowerment of young people, and territorial gaps. Of course, we have a big problem of north-south divide, and we've given ourselves the national norms to constrain the European plan in a way that we favor the closing of territorial gaps, the youth employment, and gender equality. The estimated impacts on the economy are these numbers here. Usually these numbers, I'm an economist, but numbers sometimes don't give you. The numbers needs to be put in a framework to have a meaning. Real GDP plus 12.7% doesn't necessarily mean something significant, but this is saying that we expect, of course, a positive impact. Whether plus 3% of the total employment is big or small, I always found that it's not a fascinating discussion, because the important thing is to do what we are expected to do, and then the behavior, the evolution of employment and GDP depends on many things, and probably at this point not very much on the recovery plan, which is something that has many other benefits. The recovery plan, a political benefit. It makes the administration work in a much better way than usual, because it's a big exercise in programming resources, investment, and giving a horizon of investment and growth, and the result will be seen at the end. Okay, the 6 missions. These are the 6 missions. You see that the these are the 6 missions as designed in our plan. The recovery plan is not everything, because it's complemented by, this is important, it's complemented by national resources. You see bottom on the right, we have 30 billion of national resources that has been implemented to complement the European plan. Basically, when all the projects, all the planned investment and reforms were on the table, we realized that we needed more resources than what was awarded by the was disposable by the recovery and resilience plan, and then we complemented the expenditure with national resources. REACT-EU is another fund, European fund. So 50 billion it's digital, 70 billion is green, 31 billion is infrastructure, then 33 is education and research, 30 is inclusion, cohesion, labor basically, and 20 is health. So the last 3, mission 4, 5, and 6, it's basically what we call social inclusion. That's why I said that social inclusion is big. Is bigger than in other countries, because like in other countries, we invest in the digital and in green transition, but more, and the infrastructure is green infrastructure, is green mobility, so it's also green. But more than other countries, we put some more money on social inclusion, because of course in transition you have people that lose jobs, have to change jobs, and this is important to be insured against the transition, the rapid transitions. This slide is saying that it's not only investment, and of course the plan is made by reforms. It's a very important part of the plan, and reforms are of 3 types: enabling reforms, horizontal reforms like the public administration and justice reform, and then sectoral reforms. There are many sectoral reforms. That in many cases the investments are accompanied by reforms of the sectors. For example, here I have some example. There is a tertiary education system reform, so the investment on doctoral programs, for example, there is a big investment on doctoral program, is accompanied by reform of the tertiary education system, and so on. Like also the investment in infrastructure is accompanied by reforms in the infrastructure regulation. The investment in digital is accompanied by reform in the digital system of exchanging data, and so on. This comes later. We have achieved the 2021 objectives already, and you see that in the arrow at the bottom of the slide, you see that We received pre-financing and anticipation of the total sum due in August. Then we achieved the first set of objectives in December 21. It was first checked by the European Commission. We just received on 28th of February the first installment, and then we are preparing for June 22 is the second check. Every 6 months there is a check of the objectives, the achievement of the objectives that have been contracted, have been set by the government and the European Commission jointly. So we have, to give you an idea, we have achieved 25 investments and 27 reforms by December 21. Actually, for those of you that maybe not many of you know how the European funds, the ordinary European funds work. Usually they work that you spend the money and you get the reimbursement on the amount spent. But the Recovery and Resilience Fund doesn't work this way. The Recovery and Resilience Funds, what I said at the beginning, is the biggest probably exercise in programming resources ever made in Italy, because it required a long bargaining with the European Commission on every single line of project, 190 projects, a bargaining of the objectives 6 months for every 6 months. So it's a timing, it's a big exercise in programming spending and resources over time, over the 6 years. But every 6 months, there is a set of objectives to be met. And it doesn't work like ordinary funds that you get reimbursed on the amount spent. It works that every 6 months they check whether you achieved the programmed objectives, and if you achieved the targets and the milestones, you get the money promised. If you don't have achieved the objectives, you start with a long procedure of how much you can get back of the money or not. So we are here in February 22. We just got the second installment of the total sum promised, and we are working towards June 22. In the rest of the presentation, I tell you something more on what exactly we did mission by mission, and what exactly we are planning to do in the next 6 months. So that if you have questions, we can start from what we did so far and what we are doing in the next 6 months. I didn't prepare the full presentation of what we are doing over the 6 years because it's going to be too long. Okay, this is I already said. So we can start with the 2021 achievements, what we did for the 31st of December, for the first check of the achievements of the objectives. We have a reform of the civil justice system, one of the big problems of Italy in general, and one of the recommendation, the usual recommendation of the European Commission. It's the delay in the civil justice system, the tribunals. So the reform of the civil justice enables the government to adopt within a year legislative decrees to reorganize the civil justice system and modify the procedural civil code. Basically, one of the main problems is the big backlog of procedures to be the case backlog, basically. So one of the main reforms, as I said in one of the previous slides, is basically it's a hiring of 8,000, I think, workers in tribunals to deal with the case backlog. This is basically what we did, what we are doing. We are in process of doing in the civil justice system, and this investment in more human resources basically is accompanied by the reform of the justice civil system to avoid that we accumulate more backlog in the future, basically. There is also reform of the criminal justice system, which goes parallel. So civil and penal and criminal justice system. And the third thing that it's in the process is the procurement, public procurement. So one of the other big delays in the investment we have had in the past 10 years. We have had one of the biggest problems of Italy has been the continuous decline in public investment for many reasons. Because it was austerity, so we had to save money, and because the administration, central and local administration, were not able to spend money. So we had a big decline in public investment, which of course had an effect on growth. So everybody who has studied basic economics knows that investment is the driver of growth, and if you give up on investment for too long, of course, you're not expected to grow. So the reform of public procurement system is one of the things that we have done and we are doing in the next months. This is mission number 1. Mission number 2, with the green economy. Electric mobility, so electric buses for cities. I put only some of the things we are doing, and not everything. For every mission, I've chosen 3 or 4 things to tell you about, because otherwise it's too long a story to tell. Investment on electric buses. This is what one of the main things that we're going around big metropolitan cities, and today we are in Bologna this afternoon, and we tell what we are done and what we are doing mission by mission, project by project. One of the most interesting things for cities, of course, is green mobility. How to change the public transport system from diesel, from fuel to electric. So one of the biggest investment is in electric buses. The second line is adoption of national program of air pollution control. This is another thing that, of course, it's very important in some cities more than others. But air pollution control is one of the things that we are concerned with. And the last thing is urban and peri-urban forest. So this is another big investment, is in planting plants in urban areas and around cities. Mission number 3 and 4, it's together. 3 and 4. In mission number 3 and 4, there is a big investment in railways, basically, because railways substitute the transports on roads, the road transport, which is more polluting. There is many measures to accelerate the authorization process of the projects. This is also one of the reasons that I just said. It's the fact that many administrations were very slow in spending the money and building infrastructure. So the recovery fund basically grants special rules for the investment in infrastructure, and we have devised special rules of authorization process for the projects within the recovery plan. Then there is implementation of single custom window, which is a dedicated portal for a single control desk in the custom, which is something as sportello unico doganale, which is something that it's in the making now. And for mission number 4, there is an important investment in kindergarten, because one of the things where Italy is behind is the covering of small children. So there are very few kindergartens in Italy relative to other countries. So there is a big investment in the construction of new kindergartens. In Bologna is not a good example because they are doing good already. But in many other countries, in many other cities around Italy, especially in the south, and probably you read, if you read the Italian news, you just read that the south is having problem even with the recovery fund in presenting projects for the construction of new kindergarten. So there is a big investment in that, and regarding university, there is an investment in scholarship and a university degree reform. In particular, there is an investment in research and doctoral programs, which is interesting for at least students of your age, but there is also an investment in the professional channel of universities, like the technical institutes, which is an alternative to university for students that want to do applied work rather than applied studying, rather than academic studies. So one of the things where Italy is behind is the lack of a professional university, a professional channel, a tertiary education after secondary school, a tertiary channel as an education level based on applied studies rather than academic studies. And one of the reforms in the making is developing this alternative channel to university, basically. Mission numbers 5 and 6, which are the last two, and then I have a few slides to tell you what you're doing next, and then I'm over. Mission number 5 and 6. As I said, one of the main worry in the plan is putting money on accelerating transitions, because if you put a lot of investment, you rightly do so, on digital transformation and green transformation, of course, you are accelerating also the change in the job mix, creating new job in the green economy and digital economy, but probably destroying some jobs in sectors that are not needed as before. So the mission number 5 is the mission of social inclusion, of cohesion, and it's putting 4.6 billion euros in 6 years on reskilling, upskilling and reskilling workers. And this is a big challenge because, of course, in many parts of the country, upskilling and reskilling is not popular, is not something that is currently done, and it's a big challenge because we need to train young workers to new jobs, very important, and retrain workers that are expelled by failing firms to do something new, something different. There is attention, as I said before, to women's entrepreneurship, women's work and entrepreneurship. Italy is one of the countries with the lowest level of female employment. Still now, there is a traditional reason because women of a certain age, of course, they don't. If they never worked, we don't expect them to work. But also in the young generations, the young cohorts, there is still a difference between Italy and other countries. This is more worrying because we want to achieve soon convergence with the other our neighbors. And then mission number 6 is health. We are developing territorial hospitals and care. And one of the things that it's been done now is this framework law for disability. This is something that it's now in Parliament. Very quickly, the June 22 milestones. So basically, it's an addition of what I said so far, mission by mission. I give you an addition of what we are doing next. Mission number 1. Among the reforms, there is a spending review for the years 23-25. The Piano Borghi or Piano Small Village, which is something for the improvement of infrastructure and attractiveness of small villages across Italy. It's very important for the cultural heritage and the Minister of Culture because many small villages in Italy are very important from the attractive point of view, of the touristic point of view, but they need money to be improved. And the last thing, very important, is the awarding of public contracts for the digital connection projects. This is the big project of mission number 1, and it's already at the stage of awarding contracts to private firms to build the infrastructure for fiber connection, basically. Mission number 2. National Waste Management Program. This is also one of the competition. It's already open for municipalities, cities that want to improve or build waste management plants. And the second line is the simplification of acceleration of energy efficient measures. Probably even if you are a foreigner, you have heard of super bonus 110%, because 110% has been never heard of, that you get more than what you spend. it's the basically energy efficient measure in Italy. For private buildings and public buildings, both. Mission number 3, we already given money to the railway system, to the railway company, the basics, the public company, for the construction of new high-speed trains, mostly in the south, Napoli, Bari, Palermo, Catania. And then there is the construction of the new system, the European system of traffic management and control. Mission number 4. Mission number 4 is education and research. Education and research, the investment on universities, basically, and research is made through the we already, there are open competition already out for universities. They're jointly proposed projects for creating national champions in research and development in 5 areas, like digital, biodiversity, pharmaceutical. Now, and there are other 2. One is green mobility, of course, and there is one. The 5th one is in agriculture. Okay, so 5. There are consortiums. They are jointly universities jointly propose projects in these 5 areas. And in the second line shows that we are also doing a plan of digital transformation of the Italian school system. So many schools are not connected or not connected fast enough to the fiber, and this is one of the things we're doing in the next 6 months. Mission number 5. And this is the last thing that I say is size of mission 5 and mission 6. We award the contracts for urban regeneration. So this is the turn of municipalities that receive the money and have to choose in a competitive way. Of course, the private firms are going to build these regeneration plants in the city, including Bologna. Course. And the mission number 6, modernization of hospital technology. This is one of the lines that is mission number 6, but also mission number 1. So it's telemedicina. It's in Italian. In English, I don't know. It's the health from online. So you connect to the doctor, not in presence, but from far. And in many cases, this is, of course, a substitution for chronic diseases. It's much better than not having any help, being at home with no help, rather than having help from far, for example. And okay, measure to enhance home care digitalization, basically. Okay, I think this is all what I have to say, and I can take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Leonardi, for that excellent overview of these initiatives. And I should mention that we have quite a few people in Zoom land. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. We have one question, but let me open it up to the floor here first and maybe go back and forth. Professor Ricci.
is Giulio Ecca. I'm a professor here and also at the University of Bologna. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. Two simple points, but to me very interesting according to your presentation. The first one is internal to the plan. That is, how do you see the development of public procurement, especially in the social sector, with regard to the new framework of the third sector in Italy related to the co-planning between public institution and third sector bodies, which is a very transversal issue also at the European level. As you know, payment by outcomes and all these fields in public procurement are becoming a very interesting area to evaluate the social impact of public investment. The second point, a bit external to your presentation, but I'm interested to hear your opinion and your view on that. As you know now, employment is picking up again, as you mentioned also in your first slide. And just, talking anecdotally with people, quite a lot of small entrepreneurs, especially in the trade and commercial sector, hospitality, argue that there is a lack of availability of people willing to work. So some people obviously argue that could be an issue related to previous reforms, such as the reddito di cittadinanza implementation or a possible disincentive for that. What is your opinion on that? Thank you.
You want to take a few?
Yes,
Okay.
I can
Well, let me read one from online here. Vincenzo Romeo writes, thank you for your in-depth, data-driven presentation. My question focuses on an aspect that has been often a point of criticism towards in Italy, monitoring. For instance, let us consider green investments in the NRRP, around 30% of total funding. Italy has seen in the years after 2005 an explosive growth in renewable energy supply thanks to effective feed-in tariffs. At the same time, one of the International Energy Agency's key recommendations for Italy has repeatedly been a more effective, more transparent monitoring of green investments in markets. Since the NRRP funding is conditionally linked to qualitative and quantitative goals being achieved, and that projects will be managed at all levels, national, regional, municipal, what steps are being implemented to ensure an effective monitoring?
An effective monitoring of what?
Of these progresses, I think, in green investments.
Green investment.
And should we do one more?
Thank you so much for being here. I'm from Germany, you're correct. We do have a lot more ecological focus than Italy in how we spend this money. But one of the big issues in Germany that is being thought about and how we spend this money right now is connecting our East and West a bit more, which, we're very separate. So I just wanted to ask how these pieces fit together to connect Italy's North more with Italy's South and, achieve a sort of equalization of economic opportunities between the North and South. Thank you.
Okay. Should we do one more? Okay.
There is an additional one to this. Thank you very much. You hinted that there are problems about the part of our southern citizens to produce good enough plans. And in fact, in Sicily, there has been a disaster recently, precisely under this account. How do you think that it is possible to face the situation? What the government is trying to do to empower these people, and because this is a very long-run problem also with the EU funds before the NGO.
Okay. Third sector, the participation of the third sector to investment is very important. Actually, it's mostly in some lines of investment. We predict a big involvement of the third sector, mainly in the designing of piani urbani integrati in urban plans. Urban plans, which is something that I quickly touched in the presentation. When cities present the renovation of and the investment in new urban plans, they can do it, and actually they are highly suggested, highly motivated to do so. They can do it in conjunction, jointly with the third sector, because many of those investments are in, for example, in houses for the elderly, or for the children, very young children, children with problems or social problems. So these things typically are taken care by the third sector. So the investment here of is mostly in conjunction with the third sector organizations. The mismatch and lack of personnel, youth employment, it is of course a big problem, and probably is going to be even worse it's going to get worse simply because we are in a big transformation, and we are actually accelerating big transformations with the plan. So of course, there is an issue of preparing the youth to do new jobs. If I think when I was young, when I was your age, or and if I think now, of course, the share of jobs in the digital sector is doubled. When I was young, it was, it's not long ago, I'm not that old, but simply the internet, when I was very young, was not there. The smartphones were not there, and the presentations were, when I started my academic career, the presentations were on the slides, not online. They were on the table with the projector. This is something that many of us can remember very well. And it was not long ago. So it's clear that nowadays all firms and public administration need digital competences, and this is for the digital part. If you look at the investment a few years ago, the biggest players in the corporate world was oil and gas, with the highest value in stock markets were oil and gas firms. Nowadays, it's all digital firms or green firms like Tesla, or firms that are investing in renewable energies are doing much better than all the public investment now is directed to green investment. So these things, of course, create the need for new competences. Whether the reddito di cittadinanza is the culprit of some of this mismatch, actually, I don't know. Probably we need to change something about the reddito di cittadinanza, but it's going to take time. I don't think it's the main culprit. It's probably the change is much bigger than the reddito di cittadinanza. Monitoring of green investment. I don't know exactly what it means by monitoring, but of course, if you are meaning about the recent issues that we had with the super bonus 110%, or the fact that if you need to subsidize green investment, you may also do it too much sometimes, because now we are going to change the incentives, because the past incentives in green investment didn't work too well. But this is still it's a process of learning and improving the incentives, of course. Investment in green technologies is something that is new, where the competence are still, if you look, if you look around, there are still very few competences in green and in digital technologies, very few, because the investment and the public investment in the digital and green is relatively recent. What are we doing for the South? The last two questions. What are we doing for the South? We are doing, there is one national constraint that I quickly talked about in one of the first slides, is that we imposed that in every investment, there is a share of 40% of resources that must go to the South. So we have the regions that belong to the South, which are 5, 6, 7, 8. Good, thank you. 8 regions, and they must receive, this is an obligation, it's not an option, 40% of the resources in each line of investment. It's not an overall constraint, it's a constraint for each investment, which sometimes it's hard to achieve because in many cases it's a bit, it can be difficult, but it's one of the things that we have imposed to have a try at least at achieving convergence between North and South. And when it doesn't work, like in the example, for example, of the kindergarten of yesterday, 2 days ago, and we are giving support to the municipalities in every possible way because we have sent them new personnel, we have given funds for presenting the projects. We are doing everything is possible. Actually, the competition for the money for, I give you an example, the competition for the money for kindergarten was the biggest investment in the overall plan. It's simplified to the bone. So if you are a municipality, a municipality of the south of Italy, you don't even need to present a project, a full project. You get access to the financing simply for the fact that you are a municipality with a low level of covering of children in kindergarten. So this is an objective measure. And you get the financing. The problem is that after getting the first financing, then you have to do it. So we saved you from competing in the first stage, competing with Bologna when you present a project for a new kindergarten can be difficult for a municipality of the south because, of course, Bologna is much better because of tradition and so on. But once you get the money after the first stage, then comes the second stage, and then you have to do the project, and that's what is going to be more difficult.
Okay, why don't we start up another set of questions. We'll begin with one from Professor Rovelli in the Q&A. Ti saluta. You mentioned investments in subsidies for electric vehicles, especially public transport. However, there is no point in going electric unless electricity is produced from green resources. You did not speak about this. Is this issue outside the NRRP, and if so, why?
Okay. Should I take more?
We've got
Hi, I have a macro question. Hi. You did stop at 2022, but 2026 is coming soon. So I wonder whether you fear there might be from 2026 onwards some investment fatigue where some of the investments might be reversed at a particular point in time when the Italian government should start dealing with very high public debt levels, or the reform part of the national plan is sufficient to create a potential that would make the system resilient to the massive fiscal consolidation that I'm expecting should take place at some point.
Thank you. I have two questions that actually connect quite closely to the previous question. So the first one is about the transition, the energetic transition. If there are any plans in place in the long run for a definitive or long-term energetic transition, especially in regards to lowering the dependence from oil and gas specifically. And the second question is more of a curiosity, I guess. How is the coherence of investments, projects, reforms, and the missions guaranteed through political discontinuity or possible political discontinuity in governments, parliament, political, let's say, political quarrels or whatever? Thank you.
Yes, I'm also kind of following up from previous questions. The question about reducing the dependency on oil and gas, of course, is very topical, as we know what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, and it may be too early to tell, but it's obviously become very, very urgent. And with regard to the other question that kind of broadens the or lengthen the time horizon, and maybe also the context, which is the European context. Of course, Italy is the biggest recipient of funds, and everybody's watching Italy in a sense from the other capitals, because the whole success of this big solidarity project will hinge in a way on how Italy will be doing. And connected to that is the fact that a further suspension of the Stability and Growth Pact has arrived or is arriving, and will that affect in any way your plans?
Should we do more, Jackie?
Do this loudly enough as it is. I just wanted to ask about the interconnections between the different investments, particularly in the area of skills and technical institutes, because you have the international models that are very generic in terms of which fields they target, and then other ones that are more dynamic in consultation with industry, for example, emphasizing the green technologies in particular of your technical institute. So how, on the skills side, do you see the coordination with the sectors that you're really trying to emphasize?
Okay. Three questions. One on the green electricity, the transition towards the green sources of electricity. The second, whether investment will last after 2026, and more macro question. And the third on the skills and the technical institutes. Green electricity, of course, the plan was making a big effort, maybe less than other countries in when considering the shares of the resources employed in the green transition, but it's already making a big process, a big investment. Now we need probably to do even more because of the problems with the Ukrainian war. And one of the things that we can do is to simplify the bureaucracy in the authorizations of the green electricity plants, because one of the reasons why, for example, Spain is doing much better than us in investment in green, it's also geographical, because Spain has a big flat territory, and we have more cultural heritages, some beautiful pieces of territory that don't want to be hosting the solar panels, for example. and we are doing a big investment in simplifying the bureaucracy and the authorization procedures for the solar and eolic and hydroelectric plants. That's what we are doing for regarding the production of electricity. Of course, Professor Rovelli is absolutely right. If you do everything electric, but you produce electricity with the traditional oil and gas, you are not doing much better. And probably are doing worse. So we have to employ these 2 years where we have problems with the oil and gas, at least from Russia, to improve our capabilities of exploiting renewable resources in terms of electricity production. What happens to investment after 2026? This is a big issue, but actually what we are doing is, of course, we know that the recovery plan is not everything. Even now is not everything, because Italy has 3 big sources of funding regarding investment. Extraordinary funding through the resilience plan. But then you have 2 more sources that are ordinary but very generous, every single year very generous. And it's the ordinary European funds and the ordinary cohesion funds, Italian cohesion funds. The first, it's European money through the division of the budget. It's not like the recovery plan, but it's an additional issuing of European bonds. It's a very different issue, but European ordinary funds and cohesion internal national funds, cohesion funds, North-South cohesion funds. So the big exercise here is to plan investment using the 3 sources. It's not that you use the recovery plan and you forget about the other ordinary funds, because basically when you consider the dimensions of this funding, if you forget the first to concentrate, to focus only on the next generation EU, you are not doing a good job, because you are simply substituting money with other money. So you have to use all funds. And to respond to the questions, we are already putting in the national budget laws the investment projected after 2026, because of course, if you think about building a high-speed railway or the metro, the tube, the metro, the transit, the transport system in metropolitan cities, you don't finish by 2026. So you need to fund already after 2026. And that's what we are doing, of course. So we are already planning investment after 2026 on national budget, on the national budget. What's going to happen after 2026? Nobody knows. Of course, we still don't know. We don't know already. We still don't know what's going to happen to the revision of the fiscal rules at the European level. Actually, I think that whatever happens, I think that one of the most important improvement that the next generation EU will bring, it's the microeconomic improvement, not macro. The macro level is obvious. It's also its political level. It's very evident and positive, of course. But the micro benefit that this is hopefully going to bring, it's not so evident, but it's clear from somebody that it's at least that's working on it from behind, from inside, and it's the fact that I already mentioned, that the administration, all the public administration, the ministries, the cities, the regions, and all the bureaucracy, basically the public bureaucracy, it's working towards better programming of expenditure and a much better monitoring system of the expenditure. Much better, because of course you set targets and you check the targets. You don't have an amount of money that you can spend or not spend, and if you spend, you get reimbursed or not. Because if you have an amount of money that it's there, and then the public bureaucracy has not very much interest in spending, because spending is a bit dangerous. It's tiring. It's a big commitment. So much of the bureaucracy, basically, if they can do, they don't spend. Now you have to spend because you have targets, and everybody's checking that you spend. And this is a big improvement in itself. So if you consider designing the public investment in this new way, with the targets and checking on the targets, maybe with an external constraint, in this case is the European Commission, I think you're doing much better, because maybe there is a fiscal consolidation, who knows? Maybe there will be a restraint in the public investment in the future. But problem of Italy, at least, is not that we didn't have much money in investment. We have still, in the past 10 years, we put a lot of money on public investment. Simply, we never spent it. So it's all in the budgets, but it's never on the ground. If we can improve our administrative and spending capabilities through this big exercise that is due to the resilience plan, and if we permanently change the way that we manage public investment, we are doing a good job. Whatever happens to fiscal consolidation in the future of the Italian debt and Europe itself.
Okay, if I could ask a question that sort of follows on this a bit. You've spoken a lot on the expenditure side, of course, be consistent with the new plan. But you also mentioned microeconomics, and it's important to not sort of forget that essentially the Italian economy in real terms is about as big as it was at the beginning of this century, and it hasn't had much growth. In particular, job creation has been a problem. And I'm wondering if, as a labor economist yourself, do you think that it's enough sort of to do this sort of within the spending package in order to sort of galvanize a bit employment, or do we need to do things like, and I'll mention the term, reduce taxes on labor, which tend to be among the highest in the world, something that even the unions have suggested? Is that possible, including these packages in such a package, if we are kind of trying to improve, the structural, moving towards structural change in the Italian economy? We also have a question from Brian Cambiuzzi. Thank you for your presentation. How will the PA face digitalization? Will it be followed by a massive spending review and reducing the size and cost of PA with measures of efficiency and accountability and rewards, punishment inserting at wage levels? Will such reforms also extend the judicial system? There seems to be a huge investment in education. However, will be followed by more radical reform in order to solve the current skill mismatch that new entries in the job market face. Okay, that's 2 questions. Any other questions from the floor? Okay, let me just go.
Tax reduction, actually yes, but not with the resilience plan. The resilience plan, we cannot use the money to reduce current expenditure or taxes. So that's actually why we put the fiscal reform that's now being discussed in Parliament. Probably you've seen the news of yesterday about the taxes on buildings, property taxes. So the fiscal reform is an aside. It's running parallel to the resilience plan, and in the tax reform there is also not very prominent, but it is also the plan to reduce tax on labor. So the answer is yes. Fiscal contribution and they go to payment of pensions, of course. The fiscal, the contribution, social security contribution, and the taxes on labor are high in Italy. But this is not something that's within the plan. It's important, but it's not within the plan. And the second question is,
It's on the PA and digitalization.
whether we last or not. No,
Yeah, that's what I think.
And that's what I said. Well, it's a different way of saying what I tried to say before. That of course one of the main improvements that we expect from this big exercise in public programming and expenditure is that what we do now is going to last. I had to respond to the skill question. What we do now is going to last, in the sense that the investment that we are forcing through in digitalization of the public administration is going to be irreversible, of course. How the public administration will react to this change in the skills and basically also the people, because there is nothing to do if you want to introduce new competences in the public administration. It's very hard to do the reskilling of current employees. You have to hire new employees, and that's what we do. Whether the rate of transformation of the PA is going to be quick enough, we will see soon. But we are doing a big effort of actually, since 10 years, the public administration in Italy has been blocked there was a block of turnover. So there was no chance of hiring new employees, public employees, instead of employees that were going to retirement. This has impoverished the public administration, because it deprived the public administration of many competences, especially in the South, in conjunction with the fact that there is a relative premium in the private and public sector. So there was not only the block of turnover, but there was also the block of wage increments, the renovation of contracts. This was due to the saving necessities of the public budget. One of the first things that we did was stopping the turnover of public employees and stopping the increments in the wages. Of course, after 10 years, we've seen that public administration was in dire straits, and we had to start from anew and hire new people with new competences. Okay.
Great. Well, thanks so much for this very informative presentation, and good luck in your travels and going to the cities and selling it. But thanks very much.